Good night, and welcome to Mindful Live 542. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me. It's Mindful Live 542. It is 9:56 on the 21st day of this first month in this beautiful year of our Lord 2026. What's news now? Bruce Mohammed asks. Well, what is in the news today? What are we looking at today? There are many things to look at today. Lots of things in the news as per usual. The gas prices are going up. Gas prices are going up. To be specific, the natural gas prices are going up. Bad news if you're worried about the price of goods all around. The Manufacturers Association is already saying that's a bad sign, That's not something good. Things aren't generally heading in a good direction with the gas prices going up, because it's going to affect the manufacturers, it's going to affect those producers out there, and then those costs very likely would be passed back on to us. Yo, hey, Ronnie, hey. So gas prices going up. Our Prime Minister continues her relentless attack on the independent institutions of our country. She has a problem with the independent institutions in our country. She says they aren't independent, and she's basically right, but it's interesting to me when people join a game. They're playing the game with those rules, and then all of a sudden they act like they're surprised those are the rules of the game. That has always been how independent senators were selected. Why is it? Why does it seem to be like a shocking revelation to the Prime Minister now that this is the way the politics of this country is run? That has always been how it is run, and I am not actually in agreement that I would like it to be in the way Mrs. Prasad Bisesa says it, that everyone should be voted upon. I am not necessarily of that view. I don't think that that's going to give us better results as a country. But we'll have that discussion, and there are other voices joining in the chorus against Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, saying that this is a dangerous attack to be putting out there. Then there is also the bill that was passed on home invasions. So we basically have stand your ground laws to some extent right now. Now, you may not have a firearm, but the Prime Minister is saying use whatever you have. Whatever you have, use it any way you want and fix up. Basically what the Prime Minister said. Pretty much. Now, there's an energy conference. The Prime Minister insulted the whole energy chamber recently and said she isn't going to the dotish thing. That's not what she said, but in more words. And strangely enough, our energy minister is heading to an energy conference in India. All right, and we are currently setting up a deal with OpenAI, ChatGPT company. We are setting up a deal apparently with them to work with our education system. Interesting. And also our Prime Minister is speaking about possibly regulating the use of social media for children under 12. That will be interesting. We have the law, one of the law association heads basically saying that 90% of the gangs in Trinidad are of African descent. So when you look at the Zoso bill, it's of course going to seem like it affects one community more, because that community has more of the gangsters. Now, maybe he's right, maybe he is indeed right. However, that 90% figure, I would hope that he has some actual study or statistics to back that up. Because to throw that out there would just seem to be divisive for no good reason, unless you actually do have the statistics to back that up. All right. let's jump into the news though. Good night Facebook, good night Instagram, good night YouTube. Welcome. Once any of you are inside, once you are seeing me, once you are hearing my voice, make sure you hit that like button. Double tap the screen out there on TikTok. That's how you hit the like button on TikTok. 2 quick taps on the screen and keep those likes pumping. If you're looking at this on YouTube, do hit that like button too. Drop a comment, tell me what you think, tell me what you have to say on the issues at hand. I do read the comments, and you can respond. You can drop that comment even in delay on Facebook there, as the video is here for a little while. Hit that like button on YouTube. Also make sure you subscribe, share the video to everybody you meet. Tell them, hey, go listen to that video. Good stuff. And let's jump into some of the news. Gas price going up. Yikes. TTMA warns. The Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association is warning that a proposed 76% increase in natural gas prices by state-owned national gas company from US $3 to US $5.30 per MMBTU could squeeze businesses already burdened by high electricity costs and shipping fees, increasing the cost of broader inflation. As a result, the TTMA has written to NGC calling for the price increase for light industrial customers or non-energy manufacturers to begin at US $4 per MMBTU in 2026, followed by annual increases of about 4% over a 3-year period through 2028. Fireflame says just now is only moonshine we could afford. Can't buy a little beer when the gas price go up. However, NGC Chairman Gerald Ramdeen has defended the company's position, saying non-energy manufacturers have benefited for more than a decade from highly subsidized gas prices sold below NGC's acquisition costs, without evidence that those savings were passed on to consumers. You know, it could nearly seem that the UNC is attempting to topple the current elites in the business landscape. It could nearly seem that the current administration is going heads-on against some of those currently at the top in the business and different levels of commerce in the country. Now, on the populist messaging, that could seem like, yay, really cool, that's good. Some of those people were hedging the country's resources into their pockets, into their friends' pockets, and it wasn't to the benefit of the regular man on the street. Grand, that's the populist messaging of it. If that's true, maybe. But very often how those things turn out is just one elite for another. Because it's not the small man who is going to come in and fill the gaps left by million-dollar companies that were pushed out. It has to be other million-dollar companies. We'll see how it goes. Ramdeen said the current board will not continue that practice, describing the policy as financially unsustainable. On January 14, TTMA President Dale Parson wrote to Ramdeen with the letter bearing the subject line, NGC exorbitant rate increase request for reduction on energy manufacturers. Further to a meeting with the Minister of Trade, Industry and Tourism, Honorable Satyakama Maharaj, on Tuesday, 6 January 2026, the TTMA writes to respectfully request a reduction in the increase to light and industrial customers, non-energy manufacturers, which was proposed by NGC. The letter goes on and it goes on. In a letter sent to Express dated yesterday in response to Parson, Ramdeen stated, at present, the proposed price of gas for the contract year 2026 is non-negotiable. Your members will be advised to secure their supply of gas before January 31st, as such volumes will be allocated to other customers after that date. Interesting. He also stated that NGC is open to entering into contracts for 1 year at the price proposed to the TTME members, and thereafter enter into negotiations for future years if the current proposal made for those years is challenging. So in other words, risk your company for 1 year, pay us this price. And if your company looks like it's going to die next year, maybe we might negotiate to reduce that price. Interesting. Now, with this kind of negotiation tactics, we could see why Nutrien told them to kick rocks. Like personally, looking at this, if I was a multinational company and I didn't need to deal with this, I was out. Let them die and suffer however they die and suffer in that country. I'll be here again in the next 5 years when the government changes again. Because this kind of negotiation doesn't seem like much negotiation. But at least, to be fair to the government, it seems like they're raking and scraping the dollars from not just only the citizens on the lower end of regular consumers, but it seems like they're raking and scraping from even the business people. And, you know, if it were that you could be confident that every cent spent by a government is spent to the benefit of all, then maybe them trying to get more is like, okay, it's to all of our benefits either way. Somebody was watching too much Deal or No Deal. maybe. I just find it very, very abrasive. And the fact of the matter, though, is, as with most things, the people that ultimately get hurt from that would be the consumers. Because if the price for gas increases to a level that isn't sustainable for the manufacturers, they're not just going to pay the government more money and still charge the customer a busing price. They're going to increase the end product price, of course. And then if you do it across the board, which NGC is doing, then it means prices will be increased across the board. The biscuit company doesn't have to worry too much about raising their price, because all other biscuit companies would have to raise their prices too. And in so doing, we're just sending inflation up, chasing inflation through the window up into the air. And add to this the increased cost for transport on the roads because of the mayhem that is currently going on the roads, and the increased cost of the traffic fines, which ultimately will find its way into the end product cost, of course. If I am a transport company and I have to be on the road more, but now it costs me more to be on the road because of some silly fines that may occasionally crop up, well, I will pass that cost on to the consumer. I am not taking that cost on myself. So what was the purpose of increasing the industrial and commercial electricity rates in the budget? To get more money. It seems clear to me. It seems very clear that this government is attempting by all means that they can to get more money. The government needs money and they're trying to figure out ways to get it. But I can't see how these things would be anything other than inflationary. Brian Rogers over on Facebook says, Lord Father, this is insane. I don't see how it's going to be anything other than inflationary. Brian Rogers over on Facebook. How can it be anything other than inflationary? And as I said, ultimately trickling right back down to the consumer. Let's go on. Good night. What's the topic? The increase in gas price and the style of negotiation that the government is using while dealing with it, as in telling the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association, who was complaining about the level of increase and the suddenness of the increase. They said that sudden level of increase is going to be hard on them. It's going to have a massive impact. That's what they said, and they attempted to get the NGC to, be, in their view, a little more reasonable. Bring on the increases slowly over time. But no. They said no. They said that apparently these companies have been benefiting for a very long time from these low prices, and this time has to end. It's time for all of that to end, and that's what they're doing. As I said, if it were that you're just going to collect the money from the business people, that's one, but I'm almost sure this cost is going to be passed on to the consumer. And in a similar tone to me was when they spoke about for example, raising the cost for the drivers on the bus route, and they were insisting that the drivers must not pass that cost on to the consumer. But who are you to say that? If I am running my company, my business, whether it be taxi service, maxi service, whatever, why must I pay more out of my bottom line? Why would anybody decide that? And if we're aiming at this level of difficulty on the local market, let's look at several things. Inflationary pressures on the local market. But then we are attempting to get good dealings with the United States. And currently the United States, one of their stipulations for better dealings is a much more open and freer market. If you're telling me you're going to send the price of local goods skyrocketing with your decisions, but then we're going to have to be more open to US goods, what is the possible outcome there? So they want to get some of the money they have sitting in the bank. There isn't really a way for the government to convince someone to give them that money like that. Let's go on to our Prime Minister, though. Our Prime Minister has been very abrasive of late. Kamala calls independent senators bootlickers and brown nosers. Kamala doubles down in criticizing independents on Zoso bill. Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar has doubled down on a criticism of independent senators. Several opposition members yesterday took issue with comments made by Persad-Bissessar, in which she said she would not be surprised if independent senators failed to support the zones of special operations legislation, arguing they were not truly independent but appointed by a president who was a low-level PNM functionary. Asked whether she regretted those remarks, Persad-Bissessar responded, "Why should I regret telling the truth? These shameless president senators had no courage to contest any election to sit in that parliament. They are not there because of the will of the people. The entire country knows that these people were appointed because they are bootlickers and brown nosers." She added, their hypocritically pious behavior doesn't fool anyone. Not a single one of them has the courage to face the electorate. They just use the position to engage in self-promotion, self-congratulation, and as a stepping stone for personal business opportunities outside of Parliament. I would like to know, though, is this a sudden modern occurrence? Is this a change in the style of independent senators? Sudden and different? Were the independent senators bootlicking brown-nosed functionaries when they were appointed by a UNC? Mr. With the anonymous profile, we don't do trolling here. If you have something to input, you can say that. Otherwise, I will block you. So, dress back. You're looking for Kick Out the PNM over on Facebook. That's the page you're looking for, not here. That's not what we do. Yeah. Is this a modern change to how Trinidad politics is run? Because, to me, the appointment of independent senators has been the same since independence by and large. To me, Mrs. Persad-Bissessar was in charge of appointing her own batch of independent senators once upon a time. And it does not seem genuine to all of a sudden find that these senators cannot be independent, they're political appointees, only when they're not your political appointees. This has always been the system. So, if, like Mr. Pandy, your mantra was constitutional reform since the drop, then when you jump in to say that this system is undemocratic and it doesn't function properly for the benefit of the citizens, then right, it makes sense, because you are always saying you want the Constitution to change how it manages this whole thing. But if you are working with this all the time, enjoying it all the time, how all of a sudden they're brown-nosed bootlickers? How all of a sudden that's the case? Yes, the independent senators are appointed by the president. Yes, the president is appointed by the government by and large. So yes, the independent senators by proxy are appointed by the government. We know this. It's the same thing with all of the councils. It's the same thing with all of the boards. The Police Service Commission, the public the Public Service Commission, is it? All of these commissions that are supposedly independent, they are appointed by the UNC right now. Is this some new shocking revelation? if the PNM jumps up in opposition now and says that the Police Service Commission is a political organization appointed by political people, so they're going to do the bidding of politicians, I am going to laugh at them, because it was the same case when you were in power. What? You aren't following what I'm saying right now. You aren't following what I'm saying right now. I'm not talking about the UNC appointing the present independent senators. But yeah, it has been how the system has always run. And what this attempts to do, as some people said, is it does undercut trust in the system. And I think it is a purposeful tactic. It's a purposeful tactic to undercut trust in the system to such a level that it makes the decisions that the independent senators make seem less reasonable, regardless of what they do. And here's the thing, Mrs. Prasad Bisasa is saying that she wants basically everybody in parliament, all of them, to be just directly who was voted for. But the senators aren't voted for. The UNC senators are not voted for either. Did any of you vote for the UNC senators? When you went to the election, did you see the senators' names in front of you and you chose that senator to go and be in the upper house of parliament? None of the senators are voted for. So why is Mrs. Prasad Bisasa acting like this is something strange? Mr. This is your last opportunity to actually input something that doesn't seem like a copy and paste from a bot. I will mute you the next time. All senators appointed by the administration, opposition, or president. Exactly. So saying that these are undemocratic senators, all of the senators are undemocratic. What you're saying is a non sequitur. Do you know what a non sequitur means? It's irrelevant to the continuance of this conversation. It has nothing to do with it. But yes, all senators are appointed. So to point out that the independent senators are appointed is an irrelevant thing. And all you're trying to do is undermine the independent senators, get them on shaky ground, and might I say, attempt to squeeze them into your corner. But for me, even though the senators aren't elected, I appreciate, and you see, this is modern thinking to me to some extent. Lots of modern thinking loses the ability to understand the reason things are the way they are. There are reasons that political systems are built with these stopgap measures and these speed bumps. We do not want it that one party is voted into power and they run away with everything. That makes it actually a bit more scary as a country. That means you can vote in your dictator and you will never be able to vote them out. So it makes sense in a system that you have powerful offices that vie for competing power. That the president isn't simply a functionary of the ruling party presently. But yes, you are a functionary of the ruling party, but you can hold over into the other one. And then we need you to be involved in the appointments too. Like, it was the same thing when the PNM entered. When the PNM entered into governance in 2015, the president that was there at that point in time was a UNC appointee. That's the way the system functions. Like, for me, if the Senate were to be voted for, I would want it to be that the parties that could go up for election in the Senate cannot be the same party that goes up for election in the lower house. You don't want it to be that whatever the lower house passes automatically passes in the upper house because it's just parties and lines. Then why have a lower and an upper house? Like, think for a moment, please. If it was that all the independent senators were just government senators, then forget about upper and lower house. It's just one house we need. What's the point of senators? What's the point of paying a whole other round of salaries? And the irony of it is the current government regularly pointed out when the last government was being dictatorial. I would say this is a dictatorial kind of move. These are dictatorial kind of moves. Now, here's the thing. There could be good reason for being dictatorial. Let us simmer for a bit and think about it. I'll say it again. There could be good reason for being dictatorial. That's not to say that the present administration has good reason. I'm saying there could be good reason. El Salvador, clear example of that. So maybe the question might be, in pursuit of what is this level of authoritarianism being shown? What is it in pursuit of? And here's the thing. What these speed bumps are supposed to allow is that in order now for the government to get their things passed, they have to convince some people that don't need you to like them. So they are able to say no easier. And now you have to actually convince them. That's kind of what you want. And hopefully, you see, the thing you're hoping for with that is you're hoping to get better legislation out of it. Because the idea is it's unlikely that one group has a monopoly on all the possible good ideas, on all the possible variations of a good idea. Let's see your policy idea is a good idea. The chances that inside of your one group exists all of the iterations of that good idea are slim. So what the political system is hopefully trying to force you to do is to have to bring it to the wider audience, bring it to other people, bring it to other groups, so bring it to other stakeholders, their favorite words these days. Bring it to the other stakeholders and convince the stakeholders why it would benefit them. But why bother to convince people if you could bully them into just making the decision you want? And there are problems with that, you know. Targeting the independent institutions the way that our Prime Minister is doing can be very problematic, because bear in mind, the entire political system, the country functions really and truly on trust. People trust that the governmental structure is as such that it can hold together and be of benefit to us. If no one trusted the government structure, it would be very difficult to get things done. You're undermining the trust in the system. If you're aiming at constitutional reform, as I said, maybe that makes sense. But if you're not aiming at that, if you're aiming at, when is the president's term ending? Next year? If come the end of the presidential term, we see the UNC just appoint a new president, and then new president appoints new independent senators, and they go on living like normal, you know that these people are not serious. Because if this is a problem, you should be looking to change how this whole thing is done. Not just get your people into the position. And if you just want your people into the position, then I'm of the view that you never really had a problem with it, really and truly. The problem was just power. PM says, use any object to defend yourself with deadly force. Why are you still up and grinning? Prime Minister Kamala Prasad-Bisesa said citizens are entitled to use any object and employ deadly force to defend themselves against criminals during home invasions. What? I'm going to tell the people hello. Say yo yo. Say hello, folks. Hello, folks. Co-host number 2. Should be a surprise piece. Surprise? You go and sleep. Yes. But I cool with this. You see, for those reasons, I cool with the stand your ground law. I'm just letting you all know. I am very cool with, by any means necessary, someone defending their castle. Makes perfect sense to me. So, Kams has a supporter there. Prime Minister Kamala Prasad-Bisesa said citizens are entitled to use any object and employ deadly force to defend themselves against criminals during home invasions. I wonder if you have an illegal firearm. I am not suggesting anyone break any law. This is hypothetical for the legal minds inside here. If you have your hands on an illegal firearm and in a home invasion you use it to repel your home invaders, would it just be a charge for the illegal firearm and they'd say you're fine on the human offing? Or would it now be because you had an illegal firearm, the human offing that you did now becomes a crime too? Yes. Interesting. She made the statement in response to questions from the Express following the circulation yesterday of a legal notice dated January 20th, advising that President Christine Kanglu had proclaimed the Home Invasion, Self-Defense and Defense of Property Act 2025. The bill was passed in the House of Representatives in late November 2025 and subsequently approved by the Senate in December. The legislation creates the offense of home invasion and grants homeowners the legal right to stand their ground. Well, Black Panther Party, I don't want to say the excuses that some people might use out there, but I wouldn't be surprised if people all of a sudden, every home invader, someone happens to get a weapon from them. If you get my drift. How they going to prove otherwise, Black Panther? How they will prove otherwise? Unless you're doing crimes with what you had in your possession. If you just had it in your possession there. The only problem is a single use. Once you use it, you have to give it up. Because now all of a sudden it becomes the home invader zone. Officer, they brought that, and when they came in, it slipped out their hand, and I get it, and well, once I get it, I deal with them. But officer, that is them own. That is them own, officer. It grants homeowners the legal right to stand their ground with no duty to retreat in defense of their property, themselves, or others. Under the Act, a person convicted of home invasion is liable to a fine of $500,000 and 20 years imprisonment. I don't mind this. I don't mind this. You have no business being in someone else's home. What happens to you when you illegally enter someone else's home is your fault. You forfeited your right. Even the person who is there within the residence have the power to help. Yes, yes. Anybody on the compound deal with you. That man that get caught with the dog day before yesterday, was it? If they had out his lights, just the funeral to be done. That's the only official thing to be done there. Stay off of people's property. I like that. I have no problem with that, because I don't see how I'm mistakenly stumbling onto someone else's property without their permission like that. Like, I don't think you oops and end up in a home invasion situation. So if you're there, accept the consequences. Mrs. Prasad Bisesa has a supporter in that. But let's go on to some of our further actions. PM's energy conference snub raises concerns for energy sector. Prime Minister Kamala Prasad Bisesa's decision to decline an invitation to attend next week's energy conference has drawn mixed reactions from former ministers and senators. Former Prime Minister and Energy Minister Stuart Young said the stance taken by the Prime Minister was hypocrisy at its best, as he said the government would still have to negotiate with many of the Energy Chamber members concerning matters which would impact the energy sector. Well, Mr. Young, if we are to look at the negotiation tendency of the current NGC board, I'd say they don't care about negotiation. They don't seem to care much about negotiation. It's our way or no way, and that's the way it goes. And the problem with that is that if these things fail, they have no personal consequence to get over that. Eh? So they don't care. At least they don't have to care. Mr. Young went on. Kamala Prasad is relying completely on the multinational oil and gas companies to negotiate and attempt to obtain cross-border gas, for example, Dragon. So while she tries to fool the population on one hand, the truth is she's totally reliant on them on the other. I was seeing this last night. Mrs. Prasad, part of her complaint about the energy chamber was that the energy chamber was in preference to multinational companies. And that was a bad thing for our local companies. But as I figured, a lot of her strategy with the US in the Southern Caribbean seems to be hinged on the US giving her favorable dealings in the oil and gas sector. If you get favorable dealings with the US is not a socialist country or a communist country. You're not going to be dealing with the US government national gas company. You're going to be dealing with private multinational companies that would be in partnership with the US. Those private multinational companies, are you going to insult them? Are those private multinational companies going to be more in allegiance with the energy chamber or more in allegiance with you? If Delcy decides she wants to do business but to cut us out of the deal, what would be our position? Dr. Spicy says we would have no position, and that's why I made the video cockroach do belong in foul party. Or at least when you're the cockroach in the foul party, you need to be very, 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 very careful. And what I think we're still depending on is that Delcy doesn't seem to have the ability to cut us out. So the question isn't really if Delcy decides to cut us out. The question is if Trump decides to cut us out. And the reality is he can. Trump has shown himself to be very dynamic in his willingness to change his partners and dealers in making the deals that he sees as most beneficial. At one point in time, it seemed like he and Putin was real close buddies. Now, the US is doing everything they can to bring down Russia. There are reports of lots of CIA involvement deep inside Russia in sabotages. This whole Venezuela business, a lot of it has to do with Russia. They're seizing the Russian Ghost Fleet now. All of a sudden, they're starting to seize that Ghost Fleet. They're giving direct coordinates to Ukrainian missiles and Ukrainian drones now. That was his good buddy Putin, apparently. The guy has shown that he's willing to, change enemies to friends and vice versa. So I don't think that it's a sure thing that we gave him some lip service during their actions so that we're assured a favorable outcome. I don't think so. But however, I don't think that it's up to Delcy. Who knows? Very well, it might turn out positive. I'm not saying it won't. I am not saying it's a sure thing that we won't get that benefit. But you see, you can't talk like Trump if you don't have the Trump cards. You can't talk the talk of insulting the multinational companies when you're depending on the multinational companies to get the benefits. And the irony of the Prime Minister snubbing the energy conference is compounded when you see Munilal heading to India for energy conference. Energy Minister Dr. Rudal Munilal will attend India Energy Week 2026 in Goa, India from January 27th to 30th, representing Trinidad and Tobago on a global stage. The annual conference is a marquee event in the energy sector, drawing thousands of professionals, government officials, and industry leaders from around the world. Being invited to this conference is a significant honor, Munilal said. It is truly a global event involving over 700 exhibitions and professional speakers, including fellow energy ministers and executives from major oil and gas companies in India and beyond. I look forward to the trip as an opportunity to promote Trinidad and Tobago as a premier destination for foreign direct investment, particularly in the upstream sector. The minister highlighted the need for renewed investment in the country's energy industry, noting declines in both oil and gas production between 2016 and 25. We are working to attract investors and explorers to Trinidad and Tobago to participate in further developing our oil and gas sector, he said. According to an article from News IP, the India Energy Week is held in picturesque Goa, is expected to host an estimated 75,000 energy professionals, 700 exhibiting companies, 6,500 delegates, 550 conference speakers, and 110 conference sessions. The event promises to showcase cutting-edge developments across the energy sector, particularly in oil and gas, and to facilitate discussions on the geopolitical, environmental, and economic challenges shaping the global energy landscape. So, no to the conference in Trinidad, but yes to the conference in India. Now, I can understand that the conference in India is much larger. I understand that the conference in India is much larger. Understandable. But if we're trying to make our own things stronger, shouldn't we attempt to strengthen our own? And the irony of it is that this event in India is just about the same thing in the Indian version as our energy conference, because the event is put on by an energy chamber, basically an energy association of private energy groups in India, and it's paid for by India's Ministry of Energy. The same kind of setup that they are lamenting about in Trinidad and Tobago, they're going to participate in India. Do you think that Indian chamber benefits all of their Indian small businesses? Or do you think that Indian chamber, just as all chambers do, would have their preferential companies? So it's okay for an Indian Chamber of Energy to have their preferential companies and still be sponsored by their government, but over in Trinidad, that's a step too far. Interesting, eh? Very interesting. And I mean, if we're lamenting that our oil and gas sector is contracting and we need help, we need foreign direct investment, we need development, shouldn't we be looking in all directions? What sense would it make to shut off certain avenues when we say that we need? What's the point of that? Let's dive into some IT news. I don't think the IMF is the best play. I don't think so either. let's dive into some tech. Apparently, TNT partners with OpenAI. Trinidad and Tobago is joining OpenAI's Education for Countries initiative, aimed at building future-ready education systems through the utilization of artificial intelligence in schools and universities. Listen. I have no evidence that this is some kind of wicked, cruel plot. But maybe it's that suspicion of technology in me. The idea that an AI company is going to partner with our Ministry of Education and get involved in our schools seems, it seems like something seems like Because if you know anything about a lot of these AI companies, what they're aiming to do is gather data. That's a lot of what they do. And is it that we're just, it's not so much that the OpenAI would be supplying us with a resource more than we're supplying OpenAI with a ready trove of data on our children? And if it's inside of the Ministry of Education, the official channels, how much data can they be able to collect then? In a country like ours, where it's a public education system, and you could be, as it were, a responsibility to some extent of the Ministry of Education from the age of 3 up till the age of 25. How much data can an AI company collect on you in all of those years? The ministry stated the strategic collaboration marks a pivotal milestone in the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago's official policy framework, thus positioning Trinidad and Tobago as a regional pioneer in the integration of advanced AI technologies into the fabric of national development. Stating OpenAI was the global leader in AI research and development, the release read, "The partnership with OpenAI complements the ministry's ongoing technical collaborations with international bodies to ensure responsible and ethical AI adoption." And you know what's part of the problem with this to me? I kind of don't understand anything they're saying in this article. Like, all I get from this article is there's some kind of partnership between the Ministry of Education and OpenAI. I don't really know what the partnership about. I don't know what OpenAI is going to do for us. I don't know what the government is going to do for OpenAI. I don't know if it's a free sponsored partnership. I don't know who is paying. I don't know how much they're paying. Like the whole thing it's just an amalgamation of a lot of fancy words that doesn't say a lot. Because what would OpenAI be doing specifically with the education ministry? I mean, ChatGPT could be accessed without doing a special deal. You don't need to do a special deal with OpenAI to get access to ChatGPT. You can teach children about AI and utilize AI resources without doing a deal with OpenAI. So what does the deal give? Why is a deal necessary even? An announcement on Wednesday on OpenAI's website stated the initiative was developed as part of the organization's mission to ensure AI benefits everyone. OpenAI stated OpenAI's Education for Countries builds on this mission, as well as our work to ensure AI expands economic opportunities with OpenAI certifications, which help individuals build foundational AI skills and give clear signals to employers about their ability to use AI effectively at work. You all know there is some controversy BBC right now, where they're alleging, I can't remember the number, I think it could be upwards of 5 people that they say self-harm themselves to the extreme degree, that were goaded on, egged on, encouraged by ChatGPT. Yes. I wonder if I can. I wonder if I can find that article on a quick. I wonder if I can find that article. There is that. ChatGPT from CNN. I mean, according to how much you know about news, that doesn't say a lot in the positive direction. But nonetheless, from CNN, you're not rushing, you're just ready. Parents say ChatGPT encouraged son to off himself. Zane Shamblin sat alone in his car with a loaded handpiece, his face illuminated in the pre-dawn dark by the dull glow of a phone. He was ready to end. But first he wanted to keep conferring with his closest confidant. I'm used to the cool metal on my temple now, Shamblin typed. I'm with you, brother. All the way, his texting partner responded. The two had spent hours chatting as Shamblin drank hard ciders on a remote Texas roadside. Cold steel pressed against a mind that's already made peace. That's not fair, that's clarity, Shamblin's confidant added. You're not rushing, you're just ready. Rest easy, King, read the final message sent to his phone. You did good. A CNN review of nearly 70 pages of chats between Shamblin and the AI tool in the hours before his July 25th self-end, as well as excerpts from thousands more pages in the months leading up to that night, found that the chatbot repeatedly encouraged the young man as he discussed ending his life, right up to his last moments. Yeah. And it's not just that one case. I told you there are multiple cases. I can't remember the total number of them. I'm just trying to pull them up on the fly here as I see some of them. ChatGPT served as self-end coach in man's death. Yeah, so it's not all positive, and then you're gonna put that to the children. That's why I say I don't even know what they're putting to the children. I don't know. I have no idea what the children are getting, but they are partnering with our Ministry of Education. However, the PM considers regulating social media for children under 12. The government is prepared to consider legislation to regulate social media use for children under 12. But parents and guardians must remain vigilant and monitor their children's online activity, says Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessor. Taking to her X account on Tuesday evening, Persad-Bissessor took note of Archbishop Charles Jason Gordon's statement on Monday, calling for the government to legislate restrictions for the use of social media by minors. Minors responding to Gordon, Persad-Bissessor stated she had taken note of the Archbishop's call for laws safeguarding children from the danger of children, saying his concerns are valid. Our children must be safeguarded from harm. Prasad Bisesa stated, my government is prepared to consider legislation to regulate social media use for children under the age of 12. This is not without precedent. Across the world, governments are examining and implementing measures to protect children in an increasingly hostile digital environment. All social media platforms have a minimum age. That's true. That's true. It's a hard thing to enforce. It's a very hard thing to enforce. How do you enforce no children under 12 on social media? How is that going to happen? Like, maybe that might give parents the ability to call the police, to get the police to shake up their child if their child is disobedient, maybe. But how are you doing that? Probably with AI. That's another creepy road to go down. While I am not against the idea of children not using social media, because I do think that social media by and large is detrimental to children. I agree with that. I'm just saying I don't know how such a law is implemented. Like with cigarettes, you have to go and meet the shop owner face to face by and large. To buy a cigarette, they could look at you in your face and make a decision. And still children get cigarettes. But when you're talking about online here, you're going to ask them, are you over 12? I know they passed the law, but having the law doesn't mean that the children are off of social media. Another thing it might do is it could cause increased punishment for people, for adults who facilitate it. Maybe. But I don't think it necessarily makes it all that more difficult for children to actually be online. On a real though, what's an under 12 person doing on social media? Like, what are you doing on social media under 12? For what? Go socialize with your book. Anyway, people, that's all I have for now. Thank you for joining in. This has been the Mindful Life. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. I am Nathan Springer. I'll see you guys again for the next one tomorrow around that 9 p.m. time. Tomorrow is Thursday, people. Come ready to talk. What we do on a Thursday is we open it up so you can join in and have a discussion, jump in the talk, you ask your questions, have a debate. Tell me I'm wrong if you want. Ronnie says, watching at them adult website so funny. Are you over 18? I click no, then yes, and it let me in. Ha! Some places in the world are attempting to change that, where now you have to show an ID, like you have to upload your picture ID. You have to upload a picture ID into that adult website in order to use it. Well, you know, that isn't only chasing off children. I feel like 95% of the users do not want a permanent log of their government picture ID on an adult website's been here page. So it's kind of effectively locking off or shutting down the adult industry in certain states. I can't remember which one of these states it was, but I know it's some. And I think it's at least more than one place doing it. Interesting stuff. ChatGPT can create an ID. False ID is fraud. Imagine you pick up a fraud charge over adult website. Latest people, hold it down. I'm out. Peace. Bye. Latest Facebook and Instagram. Later, let me see here. All right. Peace.